I'm getting old. With age comes wisdom, but also regret. Past relationships, dating, spending years looking chopped because the gym and the diet weren't dialed in. Not understanding money, though, was the biggest regret. So today, we're going over 10 money rules I wish I knew at 18. Rule number one, build your net worth like an inverted pyramid. The bottom layer is your immediate expenses. The next layer is an emergency fund. The top layer is your investments. The pyramid is inverted because the layers get bigger instead of smaller. You might keep 2 months of immediate expenses in your checkings account, 6 to 12 months of expenses in your emergency fund, and years or decades of expenses in your investments. The order absolutely matters. If bills are due now, you wouldn't want just 20 bucks in your checkings account so you can squeeze out an extra bit of interest in a savings account. If you don't have an emergency fund, you wouldn't want to be investing in case you lose your income source or have a big unexpected expense and have to dip into your investments to cover it. The goal while you're young is to have almost all your money in investments because investments will have a higher rate of return than savings. Which brings us to rule number two. Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. Some attribute this quote to Einstein, but it's widely debated. Regardless, this is straight facts. The earlier you get your shit together and grow your money, the more heavy lifting is done by time. The exponential function is probably the most misunderstood concept in math, so I'll give some concrete examples of what happens if you invest $500 a month in the S&P 500 and never sell until the age of 65. Historically, with inflation, this yields a 7% rate of return. If you start at age 22, you'll end up with about 1.65 million. If you start at age 28, the number is now 1.05 million. If you wait till you're 35, this shrinks to barely over 600K. Remember, this is with inflation, so these numbers are in today's money, not future money. How much do you think you'd need to invest a month, roughly, if you waited until age 35 to have the same 1.65 million you'd have if you invested 500 a month at age 22? Take a guess. The answer is 1350. In order to catch up, you have to invest almost triple the amount. This is what I mean by time doing the heavy lifting, as opposed to the heavy lifting done by you having to set aside more money. The trick is to put yourself in a position where you spend less than you make, which leads to rule number three, liabilities are salary cuts. How would you feel about getting paid 100 bucks a month less? What about 500 or 1500? Because every time you add a liability like a subscription or a car payment that's way higher than it needs to be, that's exactly what's happening. But I can promise you most people don't look at it from this angle. Now the 200 a month you spend on subscriptions you barely use, or the extra 500 a month you're paying for your car because you wanted a sexy car, not a reliable car, doesn't sound so good now, doesn't it? One of the most fundamental and obvious facts about building wealth is that increasing your net worth requires more money coming in than money going out. It's the same logic as how losing weight requires more calories burned than calories eaten. For the amount of people that live paycheck to paycheck and are one emergency away from going into debt clearly shows how something can be so basic and also so difficult at the same time. The good thing though is that once you're aware of this, it's very easy to fix. Either increase your net income or decrease your liabilities, which effectively does the same thing. Rule number four, debt isn't evil. When people think of debt, they typically think of irresponsible borrowing and the dangerous debt that comes with it, like high interest credit card debt. And they're right to feel like it's some kind of evil monster, because 30% interest is straight up evil. But there's good debt as well, like borrowing money to fund a higher rate of return opportunity than the interest on that debt. The most common examples are to take on a mortgage for a property or borrowing money to fund a business. Using credit cards responsibly is another example of how debt can be helpful. When you pay your balance in full and on time every time, you're not paying interest, you're actually earning money through cashback and rewards. But more importantly, you're building credit, which leads to rule number five. Your credit score isn't just a number. It determines the quality and also quantity of opportunities available to you. Having an excellent credit score will lower your borrowing costs, which is huge for getting a good mortgage rate. Having a poor credit score will increase your borrowing costs or even stop certain lenders from lending you money at all. You wouldn't lend money to an unreliable friend, so lenders wouldn't lend money to you if you have a poor credit score, unless they charge you a heavy premium on the interest rate. In the US and Canada, biggest factors that affect your credit score are payment history, credit utilization, and length of credit history. The length of credit history is how old your accounts are. This is why closing your oldest credit card might be a bad idea. Credit utilization is how much of your credit limit you're using. If your credit limit is 10K and you have an 8K balance, you're at 80% credit utilization. This isn't good and will hurt your credit score even if it's paid off on time. It's generally safe to keep it below 30% and ideally below 10%. Worth noting, paying your credit cards well in advance and never having a balance can drop your credit score slightly. I've been experimenting with it lately, but it only dropped my credit score a tiny bit. Payment history is whether you've been paying your balances on time, and this is by far the most important. Missing just one payment can damage your credit score significantly for years. But as long as you pay the minimum balance, your credit score doesn't take a hit, although it could lead to indirect effects like increasing your credit utilization to a point where it does impact your credit score. This is why I've set up auto transfers from my checkings account to my credit card so that I'll basically never miss a minimum payment, even if I manually log in to pay everything in full regularly. Rule number 6, negotiating creates opportunities. A lot of people are terrified of hearing or saying the word no, and I find that funny because it's one of my favorite words to say. Hearing it kind of sucks, but it's really not that bad. You almost never lose anything by asking for something you want. And by not asking, you deny yourself an opportunity to get what you want. The most common example here is negotiating a higher starting salary. Simply asking a question can get you paid thousands more per year, yet so many people are terrified of asking. Is that not fucking insane? Another common example, especially after COVID, is working from home arrangements or flexible work hours with the rise of work-life balance awareness. Are they really going to rescind a job offer if you want to work from home 3 days a week instead of two? Unless you're a dick about it, probably not. So if you want something, just ask. You know what? I'm going to ask you to hit the like and subscribe buttons for the YouTube algorithm. Rule number 7, avoid lifestyle creep. Remember that $500 a month investment example from earlier? That's a gross oversimplification. In reality, that number fluctuates up or down depending on your career and life decisions. It also assumes you never sell or try to time the market. What ideally happens is that not only do you start investing young, you also invest more aggressively as you make more money. Let's go back to that scenario where you invest $500 a month into the S&P 500 at age 22. 8 years later, you're 30 and your investment account has just under 65K in today's money. You get a raise. Instead of upping your lifestyle, you up your monthly investment to $1,000 per month. You go from this to this. That's almost an extra million. Or maybe you got multiple raises, or a raise and a side hustle. You invest $2,000 a month instead. Look at that number now, 4 million and change. This is where the real magic happens. Now let's look at the opposite scenario. Get a raise and upgrade your lifestyle so much to the point where you have no money left over to invest. The number plummets to this. Interestingly, you still end up with more money in this scenario than if you waited until the age of 35 to invest $500 a month. This is the power of compound interest. Now, I know people are going to be saying, but bro, what about if you get married and have kids and your expenses go up? Well, this is why you got to be careful. You got to be frugal with your money. You got to keep your expenses as low as possible because unless you're going to be single forever and not have kids, you need to plan ahead for that. Rule number 8, understanding taxes is a cheat code. If you don't understand taxes, you're crippling your money growth. Every smart investor finds a way to pay whatever the legal minimum they're obligated to pay. The easiest way is to take advantage of tax-free accounts. In the US, there's the Roth IRA, and in Canada, there's the TFSA. Not maxing these out first is criminal because paying less tax is literally getting free money. Of course, there are rules you need to be aware of, like over-contribution penalties and withdrawal limits. In Canada, there's also trade frequency limits. Day trading in your TFSA can get flagged as operating a business and get your tax-free status revoked. There's also retirement accounts, which are deferred taxes. When you contribute to a retirement account, you lower your income tax for the current year, and that income gets counted when you withdraw the money in retirement. The idea is that your taxable income is going to be lower during your retirement when you have zero or less employment income than your taxable income is today. And deferring those taxes will put them in a lower tax bracket. This may not be ideal for everyone though, especially if you're an entrepreneur and don't rely on employment income. There's other tax advantage accounts as well, but I won't get into them because I'm not an accountant or tax expert. But another tax hack I will talk about is knowing about benefits you might qualify for that lower your taxable income or give you a tax credit. Depending on your situation, it could be worth the money to hire an accountant to optimize your taxes. Rule number 9, renting isn't throwing money away. The traditional finance advice of buying a property and waiting for it to appreciate is outdated. Homeownership sounds good on paper, but most people aren't aware of the hidden costs and how many ifs there need to be for it to outperform other investment strategies like dollar cost averaging or starting a business. Taxes, maintenance, insurance, and condo fees can really add up. And if you buy a property and need to move, realtor and land transfer fees can cost a small fortune. But the biggest misconception is around the capital gains. The skyrocketing home prices you hear about are far from reality for many markets. Look at Detroit. Needless to say, if you bought a house there expecting it to go up, you probably regret it. Now you might say, but bro, what about rental income? What about it? It's not a guarantee. Sure, you can generate cash flow through rental income, but if you're unlucky enough to be the main character in a nightmare tenant story, good fucking luck. Even if you don't end up in that situation, their problems often become your problems. And you either have to spend your own time dealing with them or spend money to hire a property manager to deal with them for you. Buying isn't automatically better than renting. Now, I'm not bashing real estate in general, and depending on your life situation or local market, it could be a great opportunity. But to say that rent is throwing money away as a blanket statement is a huge misconception that ignores critical nuances. Ending off with rule number 10, market crashes are discounts, not disasters. All of the numbers in the scenarios we went over assumes your dollar cost averaging and has one critical caveat. You don't sell until you're 65. Mathematically, dollar cost averaging requires you to continue to buy when the market is down. If you invest $500 into an index fund, you can buy 4 units of the index fund when it's at 125. If it drops to 100 during a bear market, you can buy 5 units. If it's a particularly bad bear market and it drops to 70, you can buy 7 units. But if you stop buying into these lows, mathematically the whole strategy falls apart. Does that make sense? This is something that sounds simple in theory, but can be difficult in practice unless you think long term. As humans, we're naturally risk averse. Losing $1,000 hurts more than winning $1,000 is pleasurable. This risk aversion kept us alive in the caveman days, but our caveman brains haven't evolved fast enough for modern society. That's why seeing your portfolio down 20, 30, or even 40% in a bear market subconsciously feels like you're going to starve to death and that you should pull your money out before you lose more. But you're not starving to death. You built your net worth like an inverted pyramid. Your checkings account covers immediate expenses, and your emergency fund covers large unexpected expenses. Those will be there no matter how much the market is down. Remember that next time you feel the urge to panic sell. You're gonna be okay. In the last 100 years, the S&P 500 has always been positive in any 20-year period. Your investments are also gonna be okay. But if you panic sell, you're locking in losses. Unless you get very lucky and buy back in when the market bottoms, you're very likely just going to buy back in when the market is higher. Bear markets only become more of a concern as you approach retirement because you have less time to wait out bear markets before you need to draw from your investments to pay bills. This is why lots of people start to transition away from higher risk assets into fixed income assets in their 40s and 50s, sacrificing growth for security. If I knew these 10 money rules when I was 18, then at the ripe age of much older than 18, I could damn well be a millionaire. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, do me a solid and hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. Comment down below what you thought of the rules. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you 10x your money.